cover Azure Management Gateway. So what is Azure API Management? As we discussed, Azure API Gateway is a endpoint. It's just a connection between your request and to backend. So why you need a meditator? Why you need something between your backend APIs? The first thing is gives you a lot of functionality, API gateway. It verifies API keys and other credentials. It enforces usage quota and rate limits. As I told you, we in one of our client, we exposed some APIs to end client, and they were like they did some mistake, and 1 minute they were hitting our API 80,000 times. So we need to put some quota that it doesn't result in denial of services. Also, sometime we may get some payload. We may get XML, which is old way, and without bothering the client, we want to convert into JSON. Our API understand JSON, so we can do in API gateway. We can cache the information. We can enforce caching. Today, I'll give you demo how we'll set up a caching policy, and it does emits logs, metric traces, which can be used for reporting. So why we need Azure API management? The thing is, your API could be very complex. One API may be getting customer information. Another API must be calculating uh, whether there's a order for inventory. It must be calling a lot of APIs. So using Gateway, you can reduce that complexity. You can decouple your APIs and the client. You can change the servers of your APIs to different as long gateways remain same. You can make those changes. So another problem is if you are exposing API directly to your client, then you have to implement authentication, all the security concerns, and also your APIs are open to attack because and you have multiple APIs. So here comes the gateway, API management. Here comes the API gateway or API management. It makes sure that your APIs are not directly coupled to the end client. You can change, as I discussed before, you can change your API server implementation as long API gateway remains the same, and it is doing that complex job for your end clients. Another thing is all the security concerns API management can handle. So that way you don't have to, as a programmer, you don't have to worry about authentication and authorization. Everything is taken care by API gateway. And third thing is a lot of time API also will see how you can implement policies so that there's no misuse of APIs. Nobody's hitting your APIs too many times. So last time we created some API management, and this is a beautiful diagram to explain how API management service work. So there is a front end, and once the requests are sent to our once the request are comes to our API gateway, there are inbound processing before the backend get our before our backend get the request. We can set up policies before our backend get the request. We can set up caching. We can set up rate limit policies. And when the backend get the calls, there also you can set up the policies. And when your APIs are returning the response, at the again you can do some transformation if you want to change your if you are sending JSON and client understand. You please check. Okay, live is good. So okay, guys. So in this demo, I'm going to show you how to create a Redis cache, create a web API and Azure App Service. So we are going to take some web API and just create it. There's a web API, demo web API Microsoft has created for our purpose. We are not going to focus on creating web API. We are going to focus on creating our web API gateway. And then I will show you how API management can be used to connect to an external cache. And API management, APIs need to be imported into our API management instance. And we are going to add a caching policy. And we can do some more caching at the parameters level. Sometime like if I, a lot of time I'm implementing caching, is based on a user. And so we don't want to return, we have calculated some, let's say, credit history for a customer. So second, some other customer comes, we want to recalculate his credit history and return it. That is called caching based on the parameter. So we'll show you. So let's go to the demo. So I have recorded the demo, and so that I was able to speed up some process, something. Let me run my demo. Guys, you guys can see my demo? Screen is, you can see the screen?
Yes.
Mohan? Awesome.
Yes.
So, okay, we know in Azure, everything has to start by creating a resource. So first thing is we are going to create a resource for our caching, Redis caching. So I'm typing on prompt, I want Azure cache for Redis. So it shows me all the resources template where I can create my resource. So here is Azure cache for Redis. I'll go ahead, create it. So in as a standard box, I have to define a resource group. Let's create a new resource group for our demo. I will call it resource demo and give it today's date. Okay. I have to give some name to this cache. So again, I'll call it cache and give it today's date. So cache demo, and that way it is unique. So I, and there are different plans. We'll stick to the cache. Let's create it. So we are creating Redis cache here, which we will be used for caching our data for our API management gateway. So while it is creating, I'll go ahead and let me click the create. So it's creating the cache. So let me go to Cloud Shell. In the Cloud Shell, first I have to create the storage account. I'm just giving you this is an example I will be using. And this is example from Azure Certification, which I'm using. So they have given command for copying the Git. There's a example API solution. So let me first create a storage. To use Cloud Shell, I have to have storage. So as the cache is Azure cache deployment is going on, I can go ahead and create my web API. So this web API is already existing in Microsoft example GitHub. So I'm going to copy the GitHub, and uh, so it's connecting to my Cloud Shell. Will take 1 or 2 minutes. So Okay. So here my command has come. So I'm giving a command where I'm cloning a Microsoft Git where there's a example of API that we will be using in our demo. So this setup is going to create the web API for us. It's gonna take the solution from the GitHub, compile it, deploy it, create some default plans. So that's the idea. Idea is we will be focusing on creating web API gateway. There are some values which I copied from previous demo. I'll clean up my notepad. So it when web APIs are generated, it's going to give me some links. That I links I need to copy on my notepad for later use. So it's creating the plan, getting the code from the GitHub. It's compiling. It's compiling. Okay. So our web API has been created. So these are three URLs it has given. First one is for web API test. Second one is Swagger, and third is Swagger JSON. The third link is very important when we'll create API gateway. Let me go ahead and copy all these URLs in Notepad so that I can use it later. So I'm testing the API here. So I went to the API project, click the browse. That's okay because we don't have any UI. So it gave the error. So web API doesn't have any front end. So next is I'm going to test the Swagger. Uh, Sorry, next is I'm going to test the web API. So it's giving parameters for USA, codes, chess. This is a board game and give me the code. So for chess, it gave it in USA, it gave it $20 price. And there's a code prepare time. That is very, very important. Later we'll see when we are implementing caching, how we are, how that the that timestamp will tell us whether it's getting cached or not. So let's see our APIs, how they look like, or how APIs look. We, by using Swagger, we can see the our APIs. There's only one API which is code, and it's take two parameters, shipping code and the game. And this is a JSON object, a Swagger JSON, which we will be using to import into our API gateway. So our web API is all set, it's working. We build the cache, and now second thing next is let's create our web API management, a web API gateway, web API service. So I'm typing API management, give me the service. So here is API management. Let me click that, click the create button. Okay, so let resource group I'll use like which we created, our resource demo. We need to give some name for the API management service. We'll use the same pattern, giving the date so that way we will have a unique name. So we have to give organization name. I'll use my YouTube channel, Software Architecture Matters, SAM. And I have to give some email, administrator email. So I'll just call vikas@hotmail.com. So let's go ahead and create our API management service. I, one thing like manual recommends pricing tier, don't use developer, use consumption based. If we use developer, it may take 20 to 30 minutes to create. So I'll create the consumption based model. So here it's deploying our API management service. So in API, so I'm looking for cache. The cache status, it was just creating. So here I have it took some time for me, 6 to 6 minutes. So for your convenience, I have cut down this portion in my video. So as you can see, I clearly move forward. So after 5, 6 minutes, I came and checked my cache again. So this time status is running. That's what your cache should be running. Previously, the status was creating. So it is important when I set up my API gateway to use caching, it should be running. So let me go to my API management. And first thing is we are going to set up the external cache in our API. So to that, we need connection string to Redis. So this under authentication, this primary connection string is important. So let me copy this connection string. When we are connecting our API gateway to this caching, we need this connection string. So I copied this primary connection string. Let's go back to our API management gateway. And under deployment and infrastructure, external cache, so custom, use from, since I am in Chicago, I'll use central US. And here we give the connection string, which will do the magic. It will connect our API gateway to this caching mechanism, which is Redis from external caching. API gateway gives you internal caching also. Uh, we are using external for demo purpose. So I have created the external cache. So caching mechanism is all set. Next step is to set up our APIs. We created the gateway. We need to get our APIs. There are multiple way. You can define your API. You can create from definition. You can create from Azure resources, container app, logic app. We'll use OpenAI API. So here, remember we copied 3 links. One was Swagger, just third one. So this is the link we have to give here so that our API gateway can import our APIs. It's a boarding game API from Microsoft, which takes a country, uh, what kind of game, and gives you a code. So here we have created, imported. So this is the API, and we are going to test this API. Let's go to the test. So it takes 4 parameters: shipping code like USA, what is the game, chess, or height will give some height like 8, uh, width will give 8. And let's execute our API through API gateway. And we can see the response. Just watch this code per pair time. Uh, as you see, I hit every time is changing. So it's 1644. You can see it's not getting cached. So let's set up a caching policy. How we set up caching policy is we are going to set up the caching policy on inbound processing. You go to the inbound processing, click the add policy, and here there are already templates available. So we are going to use cache responses. We are looking for caching. So just click that button. It's just telling you what is the duration of your caching. So instead of 3600, we are going to say it's just 600 seconds. So by clicking at the policy, we can see ba- uh, the configuration, the text value. So we can see it has added this cache store duration at 600, and there is a this is a new thing has added. So let's test our caching is working or not. So we are going to give same values: USA, jazz, height is 8, width is 8. Let's hit the send button and watch the timestamp 1755. I hit again, the timestamp is same. It means hitting the cache. It's not going towards the API. So it's again, you guys can see the code prepare time is still same. It's still using the cache. Yeah, I lost the track of the demo. So I think here I am showing you the, just I'll watch 1 minute to catch up where I am in the demo. Yes. So here I lost you guys. So here I was showing you how you can set up caching based on the query parameter. So we are setting query parameter height. So now our caching will be based on height. Height also is more granular. So I have copied that code from there to set up caching at the height parameter. So let me replace the whole caching statement from here and replace with what I copied to cache based on the parameter. Let me save those values and see our new values are saved. Now we are caching based on the height parameter. Save it. And let's test our values. So shipping code USA, just height 8, width 8. So you guys see the value, watch the timestamp 1219. So as long the height is same, it's the values are same. Let me change the height to 100. Now see the timestamp. It has changed because it's doing based on the height. So as long as height 100 is inside the cache, so let me give 50. It's a different value. It's gonna recalculate. So it's, you guys can see it has timestamp has changed, but 50 next time is getting retrieved from the cache. So that concludes our demo. So today we recapped what is API Gateway, then what are the uh, benefits of API Gateway, and we talked about okay policies are as I discussed all the magic API Gateway is happening through the policies. API Gateway gets your request, it sends to the backend. There's a inbound policies. When the backend gets your request, you can set up policies at that point. And when the response goes back, you set up the policies at that point. So here I open up to questions before I pass this, before I ask Mohan to give his presentation. Any questions, guys? Maybe quick questions. Any questions?
Let me try because I know about this API, but I never tried it caching. I have
Mm-hmm.
to add it. We'll see that because I know about caching, but I didn't blended these things. So when I add up, I will have some questions. Surely I'll shoot some.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Anybody has any
Uh,
question?
I have a I have a question.
Yes, Soma.
Uh, in the headers, it's specified that Pragma is no cache, right?
Okay.
So why does it use like caching when there's a header that says no cache?
That's good point. Like, I think this is more browser based. So I think we have to set up the policy based on the header. These are more these are more commands for browser. Whereas API management gateway is not going to request these commands. It's going to just forward whatever the header it got from the browser.
Because it's disconnected.
Hi Omar, you can hear me?
Yes, I can.
So Omar, did I make sense?
Yes, it makes. So
Because
those are not read from the API management, only for
yeah,
the
API
browser.
management doesn't care like what headers you are doing unless you set up some policy. Okay, this is if this is a header value, do this. Uh, then it will then you can implement. Otherwise, it's just a broker. It's passing this information to backend calls.
It's clear, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other question?
So because all the caching will happen on the value, right? So for every caching we want to make, we need to, I mean, have the policy with that value, correct?
Yes. So
Okay.
it would be global. Means if I didn't give height, it would be global values for uh, every every parameter like USA and code. It would give the same value again and again, and those are parameters. I think those are good questions. Like for me also. Let me. Uh,
I mean to say, like, let's suppose I want to cache all the requests, whatever I am sending, so that in future, if we are sending that any number combination, it should return the from the cache rather than recalculating it.
yes. Yes. As you were talking, like it's for me to investigate. I think it's based on the URL. It is caching based on the URL, and you have parameters additional, and that's what like these are template parameters and query parameters. It's doing caching based on the template parameters. Okay, this is the you guys can see my screen,
Yes, yes,
Santosh.
Yes.
yes, yes.
So it's doing caching based on the shipping code and game. But if you want to define something additional query parameters, you can do it here. Template parameters taking care. I think when we the request, uh, when the request, if it is slash slash, that is kind of template parameters. If it is query parameters, a question mark, and there you have to define it. The query parameters you want to have caching based on as granular as query parameters.
Okay.
Okay. Any other question, guys? Okay, Mohan.
Okay.
So I'll stop
Okay. Thank you,
sharing.
Vikas. Let me take control from here on function modules. Let me share my screen. Could you please give me permission to share the screen?
How do I to make you host?
Yeah. Okay. So, no, Santosh is host now.
Oh, sorry. My bad. Santosh, let me see. I can give you our Santosh as to. Santosh, can you make Mohan host?
Just
Yep. Okay. So I got the permission. Let me share my screen. Hope you all see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So as you know very well, I gave a session about how to create the functions just with a basic module. Today, what I did, as I'm going to connect to the database, I just went and created a database in Azure itself. So everything's created. It's a blank database. So I have everything kept ready. So I will go very quick. So I haven't created what else I created. I just created a database. I'm going to create the function. So before creating that, we need to have a function app first. So from here, we have a lot of things. From the create resource, I'm creating a function app. So I'm going to choose the existing one, Sunday Azure. My function name is, I give the same name, Sunday Azure Function. Okay, so I'm going to create the same code module. So runtime stack is what type of language you're going to use. Basically, as we are in the .NET profile, I'm going to use .NET. And it's asking for the version. I'm using version 6, which is basically given in the same support for our Visual Studio also. I mean, or else you just leave it as it is, but it will automatically update it. So right now I'm making to 6, not changing anything. It is asking for what is your plan, everything. So I'm leaving the consumption plan. Next, no change here.
Follow the instructions on the pin pad.
Guys, if you are not talking, mute yourself. Thank you.
Okay, so this is straightforward. Just only first page you have to work, then click create. So it is creating the function. In the meantime, I'll go to my Visual Studio. I'll create a function. Creating function is very simple, very easy here. Go and click add new item. Sorry, I made a mistake. Go to the solution, right click, add new project. So it will give a choice. Okay, what are you going to choose? So from here, I'm selecting the Azure function. Next, I'll give something like Sunday Azure Function Demo. Next. Okay, so by default, it gives long-term support for 6. I'm going to create a HTTP trigger. We have a lot of triggers, but today I'm going to show only HTTP trigger. Nothing much, just hit create. So it will create your basic function. It is nothing but your one of the endpoint. Basically, it is. So I'm going to rename it as get product. So product, anything. Okay, I'll give get product, and I'm changing the function name as product details. Yep. So I just give everything ready. If you want, we can run this from our local. We'll see how this works. Then we can deploy this into our Azure. So in the meantime, it is building the project. In the meantime, I'll go and see, yes, my Azure function is ready. So right now, it is not having any function. If you see here, this is my Azure function. I don't have any functions defined here. So the first step, we created the function app. So I'm creating the function from here in the Azure portal. I'm going to deploy it. So already I defined the method get products, which I gave it here. I gave the name, function name is here, endpoint. So if you want to try, yes, we can go and browse it from local. Okay, so I'm not passing any parameter. That's why it is giving this HTTP trigger executed, pass the name query, everything. It is default signature. I'm not changing anything. So get product, it is authorization is a function level. What type of methods I can pass, everything is there. I'm not going to disturb anything right now for the demo purpose. Let it be. So it is running from your local. So I want to push it to our Azure box. So Azure instance. So To do that, right click, hit publish. Okay, so it is asking for a new published profile. I'll create the new published profile, Azure. Next, so I'm going to create the Azure Function app for Windows. Cancel. 1 second. And then okay, it is done. Sometime it is. Mhm. It is taking some time. Sorry about that. Okay. Let me update the code. Okay, it's loading. Oh my god, it's not even showing that. Okay, let me create an instance. What I can do here, we can create a functions, everything from here itself. If you want, I'm going to use these US, nothing much. Actually, the whatever I created, it's not showing up. It is going to create a new one. It's creating the function service, everything. It will take a little time. Okay, it is created one. Exists something with the name Azure, whatever the project I created. Using that, it is created. Hit next and finish. So it is just creating the publishing actions. I close it and I will publish. So whatever I have it here, the method it's going to publish. So basically what it is doing, it is creating its own Azure function from Visual Studio and trying to deploy in here. Still publishing. Waiting for the function app to ready. Function app is ready. It's published. Let me go and refresh. I believe it is taking time. Sorry. I don't know whatever it. The one it's created, it's not showing up. But let me use the same thing which I created. Like it's loading right now. Underneath the
Mohan,
one.
somebody may try to join the meeting. So admit if
Okay.
somebody in the meeting. Okay.
Sorry, because
Go
what do you
ahead,
say?
Mohan.
Yeah. See,
Somebody
actually,
may
the
try
one.
to join the meeting.
Oh, okay. So the one which we created is not showing up. Let me deploy to the one we earlier
Okay.
created. Your functions. Next. Finish. Close. Publish. I just hit publish. Okay, it is publishing right now. So this is the Azure function which we created earlier. Okay, function waiting for the function app to ready. For the last, hopefully will be completed. Yes, it's completed. Let me refresh here. So the one we created earlier, Sunday Azure function. See, we got the get product. It is deployed successfully. So get the URL. So you have to click this get URL. This is a URL for it. Okay. When you are getting the action successfully. So now we deployed our base version of the Azure Functions. So now I'm going to add database connectivity. So as I mentioned, this database created in Azure. So everything is from Azure. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a table and I'm going to keep some records in that. I want to pull it from the database. So already have creation script, everything I created. So let me go. Okay, so I'm creating the table. Sorry. Execute. I created the table, added a few more records. The records are there. So in order to process, I'm going to create a table called product. That's just a model, nothing much. So I just created the model, and in order to do the query from the database, I have created the connections, everything here. So I just go and replace this. Also for making connection, I have a simple method. For getting the connection string. For that, let me add this. What are the dependency required? What are the dependencies I need here for this? I need two dependencies, SQL client and new. Sorry. Microsoft SQL client. I'll install this. Similarly, I want Newtons of JSON. Apply. Accept that. Okay. Everything installed. Dot. Got it, everything. That's it. Control S. So right now, I'm going to get the connection string. So as I mentioned, it is getting from Azure portal. So I have to go back here. So here is my Azure database. Go to the from the database. Scroll down. You will have something called the connection strings. What is that? Connection strings. Okay, you have all the connection string will be here. Take that, but you do not have the password for that. You have to update the password. So if you see your password, so I'm updating the password. Demo user dollar. Okay, so I just updated the connection string. Now I'll run it from local. We'll see how this works. Then we'll push it to our Azure environment. So one thing I want to tell you that so whenever you are using, see, we cannot hardcode the connection string in our Visual Studio, or we cannot retrieve it from our that local setting JSON or anywhere from here. Instead of that, we can have something called environment variable. We can create in Azure portal itself. We can access it from there. So let's see, is it completed? I will show you that also. We'll see. Okay, so we are getting all the whatever it is running from local. Okay, if you want to push it to our what do you call our Azure? Yeah, simply just publish. So main thing you have to remember here, it is how to address this Azure connection string. Okay, so the key thing is here, when you go here, when you go to the Azure Functions, there is something called environment variable. There are two things. One is app settings. If you want to set anything for apps, you can do. If you want to do a connection string, yes, you can define the connection string. So I'm going to define a connection string as a SQL connection string.
हाँ, लेकिन आप खाइए स्ट्रॉबेरी ब्लूबेरी, आप कभी नहीं खाती हैं।
I'm giving this connection string, and the type of the connection is SQL Azure. That's it. Apply. For making the Azure connections, okay, so there is one key thing to remember is, okay, you have to use SQL Azure const string. Similarly, we have 4 different parameters for each of them. Okay, like for SQL Server, we have to start with SQL connection string, MySQL connection string. If it is SQL Server, SQL Azure connection string. So you have to append this before the variable name. So I defined a variable name as SQL connection string. So I prefix this. So that's all pretty much. So now what I will do, I will push this to, again, publish. I'm publishing into Azure, but this time it is going to deploy in Azure portal along with this SQL connection string. Let me stop this. I don't want running in my local. Completed the deployment. Oh, okay. It is publishing.
Mohan?
Yeah.
Manvendra was saying that he's trying to connect. Did you see any request from him to join?
Here, I don't see anything.
Or you never saw his any request?
No.
That's what I'm wondering whether you.
Yeah.
That's the reason. I'm not.
So the
seeing
publish. Oh, okay. The publish is successful. Now I'm going to browse it. No, right now it is. Let's get the URL. I closed it. Go to the functions. Get the function name. Get the function URL. Copy this. Not deployed. Publishing. Come on, come on. Something it went wrong. It seems middle. We'll see that. It's still publishing. We'll see. Go back here. Loading. Ah. Sorry guys, I don't know, it's not working. Let me take something. It's supposed to work because it's as similar what we are doing in our local, supposed to work the same way. But I don't think any problem in the code because we saw that. So something is small clinches in there. The deployment, I believe, which is running in local. We'll see that. Oh, sorry, local will not work. Sorry, I just changed the variable. Get product. It failed because I'm trying to get the connection string from here. Working in local. We publish the same in click publish. So it is publishing to the Sunday Azure function. Still doing. After ready. Yeah. So I just connected to the Azure function and it pulls the data. So if you see here, it is Azure function. It is from a local database. Same, but what I did this time, I commented the Azure connection string. So only that is the only thing, but it should work for both the things. Like you can directly deploy using this, using the direct connection string, but these are always suggested way. So you create your connection string in the environment and use it. Yep. So hopefully I covered the what is the connection string variable in this. So it is a very big one, but I just given the HTTP trigger. So eventually we'll cover a couple of more triggers, then we'll see from there. Anything else, guys? Do you have any questions?
Mohan, can you give me the when two people entered the waiting room, can you admit them? Oh, Aditya, and they were waiting all the time there, so you had the control. Okay. So, guys, do you have 10 more minutes? Let Santosh and Rakesh, for people from India. We lost Parvendra again. Uh, Rakesh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Kash.
Do you guys getting late or you have 10 minutes?
Yeah, we have 10 minutes, no problem.
Okay, let's see. Manvendra, we can get Manvendra. So he was going to give a demo. Aditya, is it, what happened? Generally, you are our first one on the time. We are doing live though. Let me, okay, let me mute 1 minute. Call Manvendra is joining.
Yes, sure.
I believe he's here. He's here. Manavendra.
Oh, he's here.
Yeah, yeah. I just admitted him.
Am I audible?
Awesome. So Manvendra,
Yes.
you want to go ahead and give your demo for Cosmo DB?
Yes, I have some material that I want to share.
Okay. Let me. Mohan, I have to make him host, so that.
I can speak. I have nothing. I don't have any PPT or.
Okay. Go ahead. Finish your thought. Talk.
So Cosmos DB is a proprietary product by Microsoft, and it provides 99.59 SLA for read and write, and it's a globally distributed database system, and